Peace. Good evening to you on the 22nd of September, 2024 in the Gregorian calendar. I just want to share some thoughts with you about the times we're in. Bring your attention to some events and looking at the relationship of those events to where we are in time. We're going through a change, a shift in energy, right? And we have an opportunity to take advantage of this to make it something beautiful. All right. So this is just a couple of days after the arrest and detainment of one known as Sean P. Diddy Puppy Combs. And I named this Puff Puff Pass, right? Why would I do such a thing? Puff Puff Pass. Because I'm noticing that a lot of the conversations are about, how terrible P. Diddy was or whatever have you, and what's going to happen next and all this other kind of thing. But I'm noticing there are not a lot of people talking about the opportunities we have for change, the opportunities we have to look at a situation and say, how in the world did such a thing happen? Where we could have a man who has all these allegations of misconduct, maltreatment, violence toward another. There's a lot of death around him in a world where, in a continent where we have all this technology and all these systems in place, but nobody knew that this was going on, or that there was some kind of problem here, that there was some kind of vigilante seemingly out there hurting people. Nobody knew this. All the reports of people talking about the things that he's done to them and the suspicion. Well, I am from here, and my grandmother used to say, where there is smoke, there is fire, right? So it's ridiculous to say things like innocent until proven guilty when it comes to us being able to make a determination about whether someone is safe to be around or not. So I want to talk about a couple of issues about safety, making sure that we know how to stay safe. Talking about just culture, right? The rise of his like little mini empire at the Empire State, and how that happened, my impression of it, and what we can learn. And I'm going to speak about it on several posts because I think that it is, for me, it's more symbolic than what most people are recognizing. And I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk to some folks about it so that hopefully eliminate someone else's suffering, and also to cause a shift and a change, awakening in the community about how to be authentic, what really matters, what really counts. I hope nobody was sitting around thinking that they want to be like the next Puffy. Even when he was first arrested, I heard somebody trying to make some excuse for this, or try to say, based on that lawsuit, trying to say, well, she was down for it. No, 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 no. That's not the answer. All right, so let me start a little bit back on my impressions like this. So late 90s, early 2000, right? Bad Boy was heavy on the scene, right? All the three major pop radio stations, there was Bad Boy artists playing. It might have been Little Kim on one station and Biggie Smalls on another station, and or like two of the same artists with different songs, whatever. There was a time when most of the time on the three stations, only thing you would hear playing was a Bad Boy artist, right? And what was interesting about that is that people who were heavy into the hip hop community, the spoken word, the true talents, the supernaturals, the KRS-Ones, the Craig Macks, all that, right? Like that wasn't considered, and still isn't today, considered hip hop music. It's considered pop music that came out of the hip hop culture, but not authentic hip hop, because it's just not. He did not display the elements of hip hop when it comes to the spoken word and speaking of something of substance, right? Or maybe not always something of substance, but it just didn't meet the criteria as far as culture goes. He did popularize something, but from people who were into that culture of the dance and the like I said, the freestyle, the battle rap, all that, it didn't meet the qualifications. So a lot of people saw it for what it was, right? And then the messages that were put out visually and all that kind of thing, it really did do a lot of damage to our community, right? It was able to shift the culture about what is acceptable and not acceptable. And I just want to talk about that, not fully on this one, but on other shows, I will talk about it. All right. But what I want to focus on today is this piece about safety. It's about culture and safety. We'll stick with that. So first of all, just understanding that this isn't like the fall of some great hip hop artist. This was the fall, as far as the arrest, of a man who was used to really put out a poisonous, dangerous message in our culture. Over sexualized images, even knowing how he was used by other people to control the industry. Of course, we know. I don't know if you know about the rumors that he was used to eliminate some people in the industry that were going to come together and really control our own art. Because that's what it's been about for a lot of people, is controlling our energies here, right? Yeah, we have talent, we put it out there, but someone else wants to profit off of it. Someone else wants to, profit off of our energy and the fruits of our labor. I will say it like that so that I don't say it in a way that is offensive. So I think that is changing, right? That is not a sustainable way of doing things. And that's the same thing with our estates here at United States of North America, is that our estates have been used by someone else. Now, the estates originally, like back in the 1500s and that sort of thing, there was a reason for the estates to be established. And it was said, okay, let's say someone is away fighting a war, then the state would take care of the estate, make sure it was used to its highest and best ability. And then when that man or woman came back, they could have the estates again, right? Well, the issue with that is they're still using that today to like manage our estates. And so like we're back, we're waking up. And there are a little bit of parallels between what's happening with Puffy and some opportunities we have for proper restoration here at North America. Okay. So not to jump around too much, but let's just go back to the early 2000s. Puffy's on his artist, Bad Boy artist, on all three major radio stations. A lot of people in the community recognizing this is not like quality hip hop, but people love it. It is what it is. No, I shouldn't say no one, but a lot of people know what hip hop is. We're not going to a Puffy concert. Like, we're not going to do that. But some folks, some younger people who don't know any better, they would. These are the same people who don't know who KRS-One is. These are the same people who don't know who Supernatural is. They don't, recognize that he's not writing his own music. He's not, like, he's a businessman, right? And he's a businessman willing to do things that strong men in our culture like wouldn't do. Um, so, yes, it's just rumored that he had relationships with, with the movers and shakers that are known to be bisexual or whatever. Um, like that culture then of initiating moved into how he did business. There were a lot of men who said that he propositioned them to get down. And then, of course, you heard the audio of he and Meek Mills. It wasn't about the sex, it was about him having power and dominance over the man, right? That's the same thing with men who take advantage of women. It's not about them, like in that particular sexual act, it's about them with the power and the dominance. So that's why it's important for women to be able to, not just women, men too, right? To be able to recognize when someone is preying on them and know what's appropriate and not appropriate and setting your boundaries. And then feeling confident, like you know who to talk to or where to go to get some help and protection. Because this is called puff puff pass, is because people talk about puffy puffy, but they're passing the buck on recognizing there was some key and missed opportunities for systems to keep people safe. That is what government is supposed to do. It's supposed to protect people. Okay, so the fact that he was detained, arrested on a full moon, I think that's very interesting. And I think that times are changing. I think that more women like me are waking up to be like, hey, this, what we've been experiencing is not acceptable. And we come against the fraud, we move into equity, and we do accept the responsibility. We're studying, we're reading, we're learning about how government really is supposed to be. And for many, spiritually, we already know that there's a problem. That's evident, but not really knowing our responsibility and how to fix the problem, not knowing how to engage with one another, not knowing how to even really protect ourselves from the attack that's on many people. And it's more of a silent attack, right? It may not be all up in your face, getting drugged down a hallway attack, but no less impactful, no less hurtful, no less destructive to our communities. All right. So let's just talk about how things work. Now, we have a candidate for the presidential nomination for is running for nomination for the U.S. corporation company, right? Now, first of all, there's a gold trim around that flag. When you see the flag with a gold trim, that's a different flag than the flag that you see on the State of the Union address with no gold trim. Two different. One is the de jure republic, where people are. And then the other one is the corporate, we're under occupation of the British Crown flag. Now, it's quite an interesting like mix of realities for the people here, particularly like the original indigenous people to here, because our estates are known to be, it goes back to the Global Royal Trust. Our estates are protected, are accounted for by the British Crown. That's everyone, but we know that the original peoples were under protections that have been forgotten about, right? And so it's interesting when I see people say, we're going to go back to the land and soil republic and we're against the British Crown. I'm like, well, um, I hear you and everything, but y'all know who I am. And you know that the people are owed. And any kind of reset and not paying the people is not a reset at all. That's, I don't know what that is, but it's not like you just forget. I've heard Kamala say something like, forget the past and move toward the future and throwing up the Baphomet symbol and whatever have you. Well, what are you talking about? And maybe that kind of sentiment or value is because her matriarchal lineage is not here. Her matriarchal lineage is in Hindustan, or known today as India. And so it's okay to change your status on paper. That's your right to do so. To change your nationality is your right to do so. But when we talk about what is de jure and real, that doesn't change, right? And blood is thicker than water. The sea of commerce doesn't compare with what is real and true about the DNA. So that's just a little bit of my take on things regarding that. We have to learn from our past, and we have to use that to move forward and use the information to accurately plan so that we never have to see anything like that again. We cannot pass the responsibility to just say something like, well, she should have told somebody, or he shouldn't have done that. No. Let me say this. I'm going to ask this question actually. Do you know who the president of your county is? Do you know who the president of your county is? Okay, the president of your county is the sheriff. Now, am I saying just run to the sheriff and the sheriff is going to help you? Unfortunately, I don't know that to be true. I don't know that to be true. Some of our law enforcement have taken oaths, and they're more involved in their daily responsibilities as they see them than actually knowing the law. You do have some sheriff departments where people, they really know the law. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to us as people to know the law and how to protect ourselves and to hold the public servants accountable for protecting us beyond what we can protect ourselves alone. Okay? So I think I want to say that is a major factor in how something like that could have happened to Cassie, that she would be dragged in a hallway like that. Is that the word, dragged? Not drugged. I don't know. That she would be pulled by the hair down the hallway. How does that happen? First of all, she didn't know what to do or where to go. She didn't know what to do or where to go, because the system around her was designed to protect people who would do such a thing to her. All right, celebrity maybe, but not even just celebrity. I call them policy enforcers rather than police. They're not trained to handle that sort of thing. And so just to go and, I'm going to a police quote unquote precinct to say, hey, this happened to me, can you help me? I think the chances of getting help at least in the neighborhood where I am, that's slim to none. And it might even put you in more danger if they didn't know how to handle the situation. All right. That's a whole nother thing right there, is to train professionals on how to handle these situations. And I'm talking about all professionals, because police, as they're called, policy enforcers, they're actually mandatory reporters. They are mandatory reporters. Well, who should they be reporting it to? They should be reporting it to Adult Protective Service and Child Protective Service. Now, even if someone seems, they're older than 18, they're on their own, but if they're in a situation of where they're being taken advantage of, even if they're competent, they don't have any disabilities that you know of or anything, it should be Adult Protective Service that gets a call, because they're the ones who are supposed to have the skill set to be able to interview and to be able to find out if this person is trafficked and what's going on. And along with Adult Protective Service should be the Sheriff's Department working. I'll say the Sheriff's Department. I know that many times there are more policy enforcers in Sheriff's Department, but the sheriffs are for the people. All right. So there are more sheriff's department who should be able to help and research it. Based on my research, I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but based on my research where I am, the sheriff's department, they're not mandatory reporters, but the police officers are mandatory reporters. So here's another opportunity to bring things into order. Um, do the police know the law? Do they know their law? The codes and the statutes are supposed to be based on the law. The law, like the law of the land, like the Constitution between 1933, like if I said no, I meant no, like that's the law. It's not what you think or feel. And even when it comes to different controversies, you're supposed to be able to work a controversy out like immediately. But since we can't do that, since we don't know civics, then we end up making things a public controversy that should not necessarily be public. But it is then the responsibility of the public officials, to the public servants, to take out actions that are constitutional. And if you go in the law books, this is known. It's just most people don't pick up the law books to see that what I'm saying is correct. No code, no statute or whatever that allows the degradation of somebody's rights has any standing. No standing. And then recent case of Loper of Raimondo versus Sloper versus Raimondo substantiates what I'm saying. So that should be a safe place for someone to go, is to Adult Protective Service, and also the sheriff, right? Learning how to write and getting that information to people who can plan to help you if you cannot help yourself, right? You want to do a little research to know how competent the professionals are in your city or town, all right? Learning how to become private and to have your source of income so that you're not depending on someone who would then take advantage of you. All right. That's a whole nother presentation too. But those are some things that just really stand out for me. And when it comes to statutes of limitation, when it comes to fraud and misconduct, there actually is none. But you would have to learn how to write and do administrative processes in order to protect yourself. If you're in a situation where your life is in danger and that sort of thing, you ain't trying to do no administrative process. Okay? So that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that based on our culture now, if you knew what I knew and you read like I've been recently reading, you will know that our system here is actually very good. It's a great system. It's the people who don't read for themselves. They go based on what they were trained versus what their manual and handbook says. They take that and they apply it to their everyday job, and it's not in the full truth. It's not in good faith. It's not always correct. And I've experienced this for myself, so I'm not trying to like highlight negative things. I'm saying that people's lives are being affected because some of our public officials, and maybe a public official will see this, like they don't read. They do what they think they should do versus what the manual really says to do. And so the rules don't rule. All right, the rules don't always rule, but that must change. We must allow the rules to rule because there are unintended consequences of when we make up our own rules to the game. We can't do that anymore. And something else that stands out for me is that the Secretary of State, like whoever took that video, that was good. Do they know that they could drop that video? They could have dropped that at the Secretary of State's office. The Secretary of State is supposedly responsible for maintaining the licenses of businesses. And when people say, oh, it's private. Well, if it's really private, then why was it registered at the Secretary of State if it was really private? And even if it's not private, even if it really was private, I should say, on these lands, that's not acceptable. It's not going to be okay that people just come over here and do whatever they want to do. If you want to just do what you want to do, you on your own ancestral matriarchal land, stay where you are and you do what you want to do there, not here. Okay, because when you travel like that and you don't have any assets, that means you're coming over here to milk off of the energy of the people here and of the economy that was built by the people here. That's not honorable. Now, we could go into this a minute. There's so many things to talk about. But I would say we need a federal government. We do. Because if you go back and read, you will see that at the state level, there's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of corruption, and the federal government is supposed to put some compliance there, some oversight to make sure that people are safe. To make sure people are safe. All right. So I just wanted to talk briefly about some topics that have come up for me. I will probably come back at least a couple of days, probably like a couple of days from now, to really share a little bit more about what comes up for me. For the world who's looking over at the United States of America, Turtle Island, Amarak, how you want to call it, this is not acceptable to us. We're not just blaming him, all right? We're looking at all the brothers he took oaths with who knew about this, who did not put him in check. About the Secretary of State not knowing, no, it's your job to know what's going on and to possibly revoke that quote unquote business license or do whatever needs to be done to make sure that people are kept safe, right? Because especially if that was a hotel that was designed for people, who have funds, who don't want it to be known what they're doing or whatever, it's not okay that people would be hurt. And that's the rule there, is do no harm. So I'll come back another time and we'll talk a little bit more in depth about some things we can do to make sure we stay safe. And, some of the things that we'll talk will be directed toward what to do early on before you get involved with someone like that. And just know the men who are abusive are known to be the most charming. You would never know an abusive man from just meeting him one or two times. They're extremely charming. That's part of their known makeup. Am I saying that every charming man is abusive? No, because that's not true. And there are many charming men that have not a bone in their body where they would intentionally hurt a woman or try to control her in a manner as such that what we saw in the video. But I'm just saying that it is one of the traits. So you can't just say, oh, he's charming and think he's safe. All right. Now, I'll just leave it right there. I'm just saying it's the changing of the guard. We just had a full moon. There are more women like me who are waking up to learning the law, and I invite you to do the same. I invite you to type Uniform Commercial Code and start reading that. Look at the Constitution for the United States of North America and read that. And by the way, King George, who they're complaining about, he looked like me. He had an afro, okay? And so we cannot be blaming any kind of I want to say white supremacy, but then again I don't, because I know what it means. And so maybe it is white supremacy, but it has nothing to do with anyone's ethnicity or skin tone. Maybe it might have to do with the elite or those in control who call themselves white but really aren't because they're not all the time acting in honor. Okay. So, my point, as I'm getting sleepy, my point is just to say, hip hop, come back, welcome back. We need you back. We need that. We need music that speaks to these times that we're in right now. The restoration of the people here who are referred to in the good book, who, you can say the promised land is somewhere other than America's if you want to, but there are more and more people coming out about the truth about that King James Version of the Bible and true, the true lands of the Bible and the true people who are original and indigenous to the various lands around the world. All right. And I can't even get into that right now. But let us not, as a people, I'm not talking about just original people, I'm talking about all skin tones. Let us not be separated by religion. Let us not be separated by the color of our skin. Let us not be separated into these things that really, at the end of the day, they're minuscule. Okay. Because it is, if I was like, I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of not being from here and then looking out at America and wondering how this could happen. I'm like, that is not acceptable. And for someone who has a little bit of insight as to what can make things better, it is important that we share and have these conversations. It is the responsibility of the Secretary of State to do something when there is a business operating on the land, especially if that business has a business license. If it doesn't have a business license, then like we want to be careful about what we're doing, what we're exposing ourselves to, and that sort of thing, right? Sometime I'm going to do a post just on licenses and my take on licenses and the unintended consequences of them from a negative standpoint and the necessity of them and to regulate and have a civilized society. Okay? So puff, puff, pass. Don't puff, puff, pass the responsibility. Look and say, what can I do to make it better here? That would never happen again. Totally unacceptable for the years of allegations of things to go on and not to be able to have a safe place, on the land upon which you are born. Not just born, but have bloodline ties to, ancestral ties. Not the case that it's acceptable. So I'll be putting out some things into commerce to really help the people who are charged with keeping us safe, particularly sheriffs, on what the real law is. And I think that's part of some proposal for one of the candidates to say something about increasing the insurance for policy enforcers. Are you kidding me? There's no amount of insurance that is going to cover lack of training, lack of training, lack of training. And we need to, as women, need to be able to learn how to write a letter to say, hey, this is my affidavit. This is what I experienced. And we need to learn how to do injunctions. And when I say we, I mean we. I mean me too. Okay? Me too. And we need to connect with each other more. And I think Puffy's arrest was symbolic of this knowing and understanding that this type of behavior can continue, and that we are to be protected. And whether or not, everyone who is culpable for this type of human trafficking to go on, whether or not they'll be punished, like here, they'll be punished somewhere, because enough is enough. All right, no more puff puff pass, no more pleasure, and then passing on opportunities to make things better. It's a lot to learn, but it can and it will be better. Let's all make that commitment. All right.